Resident Evil 3 Remake was disappointing, and everyone knows that. From the short campaign, the underutilization of Nemesis, the amount of content from the original, and the most egregious, reducing the most iconic line in gaming,
"You want stars? I'll give you stars,"
to this.
Come on, you creepy ass stalker!
But there's a quote that mothers say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And so today, I just want to add to the discussion of good things that Resident Evil 3 Remake did. Of course, spoilers, but most likely you've already played the game. If you haven't, you can beat it in like 3 to 6 hours. It's super short. Just go play it and then come back. Anyways, the title screen. I like that on first boot, the game doesn't have a title screen. It gives you time to adjust your settings and get straight into the game. And if you're new to Resident Evil 3, you're not sure what to expect. It's only after you meet Nemesis in the intro of the game that you get to see it. While it's simply a towering shot of Nemesis standing over menacingly over a bunch of flames, it's still freaking awesome. Simple, but effective. The opening. While it's all scripted stuff that gets annoying on playthroughs, it really establishes Nemesis as a threat on the first minute. While the original sets the mood pretty alright with a .png of Jill narrating that she has to get out of Raccoon City, but then just randomly exploding out of a building, the remake sets the tone immediately when Brad calls Jill, and she is attacked by Nemesis as she runs through her apartment building while Raccoon City is in utter chaos. One of my favorite gags is when Jill is going down some stairs, and then she sees a ladder. The game shows you the arrow that says you can go down it. And for a second, Jill calms down and sighs in relief.
Okay.
But instead, BOOM! Nemesis comes through the left wall and throws you back into the fire. There are small other things you can pick up on, like the capsule Nemesis came in on. You do get some things that remind you of the original Resident Evil 3, like seeing Dario in the warehouse, or seeing the helicopter that Jill was supposed to escape on being destroyed. And after running over Nemesis off a tall building, he is finally unmasked where he is engulfed by flames, slowly walking toward Jill in the most intimidating way ever. When she is saved by...
Hey! Fuckface!
Who are you? What are you
My
doing?
name's Carlos, and I'm saving you.
Honestly, giving Carlos more South American features makes him stand out from a lot of the Resident Evil characters that Capcom seems to have forgotten about. Just looking from the outside from the original graphics, he looks like any other side character in the original. Steve Burnside, anybody? He genuinely looks like a mercenary who worked for Umbrella and has a much tougher look. Jeff Shine does a fantastic job portraying the character, giving him a much needed charisma in his delivery. That also leads me to Jill Valentine. Nicole Tompkins as Jill was perfect casting for a younger and more fed up Jill at this point in her life. Some people complain that Jill comes off as a bit bitchy in the remake, but I feel this is consistent with her character after the mansion incident. I mean, she's been kept under surveillance ever since, was rejected by Chief Irons, and is now even angrier that she has a monster chasing her. And knowing Umbrella could have prevented this makes her even angrier.
Most of the 100,000 civilians will wind up dead. Correction, undead. My platoon has suffered serious losses. Just keeping them alive is more than I can manage.
Well, you can thank your corporate overlords for that.
So coming off disrespectful to Carlos at the beginning of the game does make a lot of sense.
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You guys are the ones who caused all of this.
Whoa. What are you talking about? Look, we're just here to help people. What's wrong with Umbrella?
What's wrong with Umbrella? Oh my god. Your company is responsible for infecting everyone.
Yeah, I don't know anything about all that.
You actually see more of her caring side by the way she treats Brad and her relationship with Carlos.
You'll have to circle around through an alley to your right to get there.
You mean the alley that's on fire?
Maybe. Surely it
yourself to put out a few flames.
Fuck you.
It's alright, you're going ahead. I'm not gonna die on you, leave you in a cold, cruel, Carlosless world.
Okay.
Jill's panic attacks. Would you look at that, Puss in Boots? Resident Evil 3 beats you by 2 years. Also, my editor told me to bring up Finding Dory, but we're not going to talk about that, okay? Cool, bye. Her nightmares tell us more about how she honestly feels. Sure, she survived the mansion incident, but every day she's been constantly fearing for her life. Maybe one day she'll be infected and have to kill herself, or someone she loves, later on when she has a nightmare about Carlos. Of course, the things she's been through would give you post-traumatic stress disorder. Just like anyone else who's probably even been in a similar situation, she would hesitate as well. It's a good thing that she wasn't there to see what happens to Brad Vickers. While Brad isn't killed by NEMESIS similar in the original, his death is given more meaning. In the original, it was to introduce NEMESIS to the player and that he was hunting the STARS unit. Well, they already did introduce this beast, so Brad is the one sending secret messages and helps Jill while Raccoon City starts breaking down. But he gets bitten while trying to block the door protecting Jill. While at first it seems disappointing that such an iconic scene is not being remade, Brad protecting Jill gives his character more meaning. He knows what she went through via the mansion incident, as well as Chief Irons and Umbrella silencing and spying on them. I mean, he even bought a Supreme Pizza for her. What a bro. Which leads me to giving changes in RE2 meaning. So Resident Evil 2 Remake has 2 major changes in the story, those being Marvin and Kendo. Both characters only appear in one scene, but it does so much to expand on each of them. Since Resident Evil 3 takes place right before RE2 and after Resident Evil 2, you get to see how both of them got to their respective places and act the way they do in that game. Marvin, for example, meets the infected Brad at the front of the RPD. Marvin doesn't want to shoot him, but Brad does this.
Sorry.
Causing Marvin to hesitate and leaving Brad to bite and infect him. It gives this line he says to Leon, or Claire, no matter who you're playing as, more meaning.
If you see one of those things, no matter who they were, you can't hesitate. Take them out if you can.
Wait a minute, that's not Claire. Kendo as well gets a scene with Jill, and you actually get to see a kinder side to him that you never saw with Leon. He's happier to see Jill, on the outside, but he's preoccupied with something else on his mind, as he anxiously declines Jill's offer to leave.
When we get out, there's gonna be a lot to do. We could use a man of your skill set. What's wrong?
Nothing, just bad timing is all.
If you played the Resident Evil 2 Remake, you'll see what he's preoccupied with, and that scene is probably one of my favorite emotional scenes in the horror media I've experienced. In an update to Resident Evil 2 before 3 came out, they even added a file in the shop referencing Jill's visit to the gun shop. So another point for consistency. The rest of the Umbrella crew. Umbrella is of course responsible for causing everything that happened to Raccoon City. I like that other people working there were given more human traits. This could also be a praise for the original, but some of the notes by the dead soldiers of UBCS tell of how they just wanted a better life, or in Tyrell's case, just following orders. It humanizes them, similar to characters from Resident Evil 2 Remake like Hunk and his helicopter driver. Mikhail's sacrifice on the train is one of the most coolest scenes in the game too.
Get off my train, shit Sparta!
And Nikolai is a piece of shit to the end, basically doing everything to keep himself alive, letting everyone in the city die by eliminating the last remnant of Umbrella's involvement in the virus that could have saved them, and utterly failing in the process to save himself. I even like that he tries to save himself by trying to persuade Jill to get on the helicopter with some useless knowledge, showing that all he cares about is himself and money. This line.
Bitch can't even swim.
It's just funny. Gameplay. I feel there's less puzzle solving in this game. A lot of it is just straightforward to the objectives, and realistically, dashing to the finish. I personally had the most fun during the Raccoon City and Nest 2 parts of the game. There are some fun moments like in the RPD, I do like thinking my way around the liquor, and I think that the introduction of the Hunter is cool. Until he kills you with a poorly telegraphed instant kill move which makes you have to reload your save, ruining your speedrun and burning your chips. Ah! Good things. I only can talk about good things. The dodge and shove mechanic. This is not only a faster way to move forward, it is one of the most satisfying dodges to pull off. Right before an enemy is about to grab you, or even before instant kill moves, you can press the shoulder button to activate a dodge, and Carlos activates a shoulder push. If it's timed perfectly, Jill will activate slow motion and target the foe. If you're playing as Carlos, he will punch the enemy and target its weak point. Carlos's regular shove doesn't seem as helpful, but in certain situations, it can save you from life or death, and you can get by a lot of enemies unscathed this way. Sometimes I usually skip getting the grenade launchers in the sewers for a faster time, and then I fuck up this dodge leading to another instant kill! Even so, the game is smart about giving you the right amount of tools to get through. Like with the grenade launcher, Jill needs it in order to progress in the second boss fight, and like I said, you can skip obtaining it like I do in the sewers. So, they give you the grenade launcher right before the fight with the correct rounds, so you're not left out. That's why when people first played this game and they were exploring a lot, they had a fully equipped arsenal. The Nemesis boss fights. While Nemesis during regular gameplay is just there, the boss fights with Nemesis themselves are so fun. Flamethrower Nemesis forces you to think about your spacing, aiming, and how to get around hazards, while the Type 2 fights highlight the dodge mechanic and how useful the grenade launcher is with flame and mine rounds. While the animalistic form doesn't allow Nemesis to chase the characters as if he would in the original, I actually like it because it gives him a more haunting figure, and showcases his degrading state the more you take him down, to the point where he's just a giant monster blob that's the size of a literal building that doesn't care how he looks anymore. He just wants Jill dead. I feel these fights are a lot more fun on Nightmare or Inferno because the game forces you to master dodging in those difficulties. The higher difficulties. Resident Evil 2 Remake only featured hardcore difficulty, while Resident Evil 3 has more difficulties that you can unlock. Inferno and Nightmare. These difficulties actually change enemy placement and harder enemies show up earlier in the campaign. So it's not just artificial rebalanced numbers, it fundamentally changes how you play the game on those harder difficulties. While it is super disappointing that Nemesis can be downed by simply throwing a grenade, the higher difficulties makes him a monster to be reckoned with. Even if he can be downed with one explosive, he's still super scary to deal with as his movement speed is faster, and he runs towards Jill with malicious intent. Also, he gets up way faster, leaving you no time to breathe if you're in his line of sight. The final boss also gives you less time to push in the generators. At most, you can only get in one before Nemesis gets up, and that's only if you immediately make a beeline towards it. Another praise should be given towards Metamorphosis. The final boss theme of Resident Evil 3 I feel was a perfect recreation of the original theme with slight adjustments that give it a grander feel. I love the piano melody at the beginning of the theme that is present throughout the song. To me, that melody represents Jill putting her foot down to finish the towering Nemesis. Jill has been known to play the piano throughout the series, so I feel like they were going for that. And the Metamorphosis theme kicks right in as she shoots the railgun, showing that Nemesis is still an overpowering being that even at this state, wants to eliminate her. It makes for a climactic and intense boss fight. Also, if you're gonna complain about ridiculousness in Resident Evil, remember what franchise this is. And the final blow on Nemesis, while it doesn't feature the cool line, it is given the perfect amount of gravitas and finality to his defeat.
Come on! Next time, take the fucking hit!
The shop. Resident Evil 3 would be the game that introduced the point shop. By completing certain achievements, the game would give you points to unlock items, cosmetics, and weapons to use on subsequent playthroughs. So instead of doing certain types of playthroughs to unlock a minigun or rocket launcher, you can just choose to save up points to buy a rocket launcher or obtain coins that buff damage or recover health. There were also some new weapons such as the Hot Dogger or the Raiden. This feature was also brought over to Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 4 Remake, and had more items and weapons to unlock. The speedrunner mindset. I remember I watched a video by a prominent Resident Evil speedrunner saying that he liked the game more than the Resident Evil 2 Remake. After playing both games, I still don't agree with him. He brings up a lot of the points I brought up in this video when it comes to replayability and difficulty. However, I think he forgets that not every gamer is a speedrunner, and with that in mind, the Resident Evil 2 Remake is still superior and easier to recommend to someone who wants to play it. Resident Evil 3 not so much because you're essentially recommending one campaign that you play over and over again. And yes, while that campaign is fun on multiple playthroughs, not everyone wants to do that. Most people played the game once, saw how short it was, and were disappointed that it didn't fully capture the Resident Evil 3 experience. And you can't blame them, especially when Resident Evil 2 Remake had way more post-game content, 2 campaigns that had different story elements, and is overall a better value. And it's hard to defend a game when you have videos like this when it comes to the value of a video game. But I will say that playing the game again with some of the replayability aspects in mind, I had a great time with it. I now know the game in and out, and it was a more fun experience. But I kind of wish this Nemesis existed for more of the game. Maybe if they added the clock tower to the game, he could have. Just saying, Capcom, if you ever wanted to remake the remake, call it something like Resident Evil 3 Last Escape and the Japanese version Biohazard 3 Nemesis, add all the costumes from the original, add Mercenaries mode from the original, maybe add some extra unlockable endings like the original. Those are just some ideas you can take. I mean, if Dead Rising 4, every Devil May Cry game, including the reboot, and more can get updated expansions, then what's Resident Evil 3's excuse? Personally, I do like the game, and I think it's really fun to speedrun or replay it. I'm not alone in saying this game had some missed potential. There was a lot of cut content, missing modes, and changes that some people don't agree with, but it's not all bad. It's still a fun time from beginning to end, and it follows up on Resident Evil 2, gameplay-wise, very well. Just don't do horror modes such as this. It's clear that the engine wasn't built for this sort of thing. Anyways, hope you enjoyed watching, and this won't be the last time I talk about Resident Evil.